Hello and welcome to How to D&D More Good. I'm Dred Roberts. Today I'm joined by a guest who's a sort of a friend of mine I've known for many, many years. Hana, would you care to introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about your experience with the world of TTRPGs?
Sure. Hi everyone. My name's Hana. You could find me on Instagram and Twitch. Really, under HanaIsPainting and HanaIsStreaming.
Well, we'll stick links to your channels and things in the description on the tubes.
Good idea. But I just wanted to remember that I should say stuff like that.
Yeah, self-promotion is important.
Yeah. I've been playing TTRPGs for, it must be like 20 years or something now. Probably a little bit more.
No, we've known each other at least 20 years, I think.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Started really with third edition. Third edition was the first D&D that I remember actually playing. Though I did visit second edition after that. And yeah, I also had a major interest in the White Wolf systems growing up. Very edgy, but though my preferred one was always Changeling. So even then,
the least edgelord of the White Wolf systems.
Yes, the least edgelord, but the one that no one wants to play because it's the least edgelord.
I mean, I won't diss them. I love them anyway. I do. They are great systems.
They are great systems. They're really fun. But all the way through to playing in a game that you DM currently and DMing my own games. In 5th edition, but also I'm obviously trans. I say obviously. Also pan and poly, so a big intersection of queer over here. And yeah, big nerdy goth girl, basically.
So I thought, something I thought like it was my idea. It was a joint idea, but it's something I'm aware of, but I have no personal experience of. So today we were going to discuss how you can sort of explore the concept of gender through the characters you play in the games. And again, it's something I've maybe looked at a little bit. I've played quite a few female characters, and I've played a few characters who've identified as non-binary as well.
Oh, right, that's cool.
And I guess maybe we could sort of touch on that in a bit, because Cause I always kind of feel maybe I'm sort of caricaturing because I don't necessarily know. I don't have that sort of frame of reference, but you know a lot more about this kind of thing than I do, and you can probably share a lot more insight.
I mean, I think it's a healthy thing for everyone to do, is to really explore concepts of gender and gender itself and their comfort within other genders expressions, because it is really varied. And I think D&D is a great safe space for it. And I think while there's always a worry of caricaturing, and even as a trans person you go through a whole stage of worrying that you are trying to perform a concept of gender, and there's people who are like assimilationists who do literally preach assimilate into cisnormative and be a trad wife essentially, or be stealth. Right. Those are your two options. Like some trans people go off the deep end into internalized misogyny. So anyone exploring gender could caricature and could stereotype. It's just one of those things. But you kind of work out in many ways the whole social cues and the way that you perform gender through these things. It's for everyone. It's a learning process. Even if you're a cis person playing in a TTRPG as a gender that doesn't align with your birth, you're still exploring it and finding your ways of expressing it personally. So
from your experience then, was there like one character which kind of started it off, or has there always been a sort of concept that you've liked, or has there been and did it start off as an aesthetic that you wanted to play a character like? How did it come about?
Cute small energy is what I've always desired, I think. Yeah, cute small energy. I think I've always wanted to be the anime girl. In fact, you ran like a homebrew thing when we were teenagers, and I literally played a pink.
Oh shit, the
anime
demonology
schoolgirl.
system.
Yeah, with she had a glove of holding, so she could have a giant mallet that just appeared out of nowhere. And yeah, so even back then it was just like messing around and wishing I was an anime girl. But I think really when I started to properly explore gender, and after understanding that I was trans through TTRPGs, was actually the point I started to take character creation seriously, and started to get deeply interested in my character, because I was pouring a part of myself into them. There's a character called Tia Lamenthe. She was a gnome wizard, and she was the cutest little thing. She's like all frills and big dresses that are all frilly and fluffy and like cute stuff. She had a pet owl, well, a familiar, but it was
Clearly
essentially a pet. Yeah, called Egbert.
Nice.
And essentially Egbert was the only companionship she'd had on the road after running away from home as this little gnome girl. She wasn't really a little girl, but she'd led a sheltered life within a library. And yeah, she wouldn't, well, she had ways that she could use, is it Dragon's Breath? How you can put that on your familiar and cause your familiar to do a breath weapon. She wouldn't do that, because she wouldn't put Egbert in harm's way. Like, she just straight up refusal to use a familiar the way a wizard should use a familiar in like a power gaming, metagaming sense.
Yeah, which is kind of fun, really, because some people would go, you know what, this particular skill or this mechanic within the game is too strong to but if you go, actually, the character wouldn't use it in that way. I love it when players do that in my games, because you're not just playing some numbers on a piece of paper, then you're actually playing a sort of living, breathing organism.
Exactly, yeah. The only time that she would use, because I took, it was before the Artificer Initiate came in, so it was Magic Initiate with Artificer, just mainly so that I could do some healing, because it was a small party with no dedicated healer, and took Cure Wounds, and then, using my familiar, I could turn Cure Wounds into a ranged cure spell, and of course with owls having flyby. Like, basically Egbert just get
fly by healing by proxy.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was cute. But when Egbert was taken out by an enemy at one point when he was scouting ahead, she like wept and cried about it, and then made sure she didn't put him in danger again, kind of situation. Yeah, and I poured all of my sweetness and cuteness into that character. It was all like, she wants the sweetest foods. She sits there on a chair kicking her legs, and everyone adored her. Like, it was one of those things of just like, the party became fiercely protective of her, and all the villagers loved her.
On that sort of, you're pouring yourself into the character, are you able to play characters where you do the exact opposite of that? I'm just curious, because I find that really difficult. Every character I play has got some aspect of my personality, whether I like it or not.
Yeah, I find it very difficult to play against character. Definitely couldn't play an asshole, because I just can't be one. Like even Binksy, chaotic neutral goblin that I play in your game, like, she's still like sweet and nice despite being a little bit nuts too.
Sometimes she feels like the sort of moral compass of the party.
Yeah, she is. Yeah, it does feel like she's the moral compass.
Not in a goody two shoes way, more in a just from a sense of self-preservation. Guys, should we really be doing this? Can you think of another way around?
Yeah,
but I don't think they're a particularly smart party though in general. That one, I think they're.
No. Well, Binksy can't write or anything, can she? She just draws stuff and scrolls. Like, she doesn't like books. She refuses to accept books. Like, I won't read anything. Like, oddly, Binksy slips through into real me. Like, there's times when I feel myself going into Binksy voice and talking as Binksy. But again, it's another part of myself that I poured into a character. Like, she's just the feral, little, excitable centre of me.
Whereas Tia, how's Tia conflict in that, is it?
Tia was just like softness and sweetness, because I do practice like radical sweetness, radical softness. If you know what radical sweetness, radical softness is the concept of like demanding room for your feelings.
Okay.
Like, essentially, you have to give me room for being soft, for being vulnerable and soft. And it's a really good litmus test, because if people can't take you being soft and like vulnerable, or if they attack you for it, then you don't have.
Then red, instant red flag. No.
Yeah. So she's like that part of me, just like radical softness, and talking her way around loads of problems and reasoning with people, because she didn't make roles to persuade people, she just talked them around.
You did mention actually before that you said how TTRPGs are very popular in the trans community. Is that a sort of known thing?
It is, yeah. I mean, I think I know at least one person personally who really came to their own understanding that they were trans through playing women in D&D. Like, she literally found herself through exploring gender within a TTRPG, and it's very popular. There's multiple Facebook groups, for example, that are specifically for trans and queer people, because it gives us a world to imagine something beyond a binary, cisnormative, heteronormative society.
Yeah.
Like, it gives us free reign to create the worlds that we want to see represented in media. And yeah, there's a big, like, I know that my local trans like group that meets at the LGBT organisation, Derbyshire LGBT, they have a D&D group that is very popular, and that they practically all play D&D.
I mean, everyone should really. I think I'm clearly an advocate.
Yeah, I'm trying to get the LGBT women's group to play D&D, I think. That's an end goal.
I'm sure you can make it an end of year challenge. I was just thinking, as you were saying that as well, so, because obviously we both play and DM, so I mean, I'm the forever DM guy, but I know you've probably done, what, equally half as, so 50-50 split?
I think, very recently I was the forever DM until I joined your game. So you have to find another forever DM to play in the game.
So you think, so what I'm going to say is, when it comes to sort of the concept of exploring gender, as a player, you've got a lot more opportunity to get into one person, to spend more time around one player. But as a, I mean, obviously, I've played in some games where GMs don't really go heavy for NPCs, but you played in my games, and I like to have a whole roster of NPCs. I just can't help but do it, and a whole wide variety of NPCs. So in a way, I can kind of, I feel like sometimes you almost have to caricature a little bit, because you want to give somebody like you can't have 20 fully formed NPCs, because there isn't all the time in the world to explore that. So you need like a little heuristic, quick snapshot of information about the person. Was it something you kind of, you know, parties tend to have their like favoured NPC, or the NPCs who spend a lot more time with the party? Is that I guess, is it sort of easier to explore different identities through that means, or is it easier as a player?
I think it's a lot easier as a player, because the problem is, as a DM, is you can make like 50 NPCs with loads of different varied characteristics, and you don't know which one your players are going to latch on to.
Very true.
For my players, it was an Caricaturing called Travis, who spoke in like an American dude bro accent, and was just like, I'd just stand there and flap my wings and talking in this like American accent, and they loved him. They loved Travis.
Yeah, I totally want to like fly over that canyon right now.
Yeah, but like you can't pick and choose what your players are gonna enjoy, and like I do obviously make a very diverse world when I create it. So you just gotta hope that your players latch on to stuff like that. I mean, I had a situation recently where players were talking to 3 goblins who were they were just doing weird stuff in a bar, like juggling vials of like green fluid and axes and all kinds of weird stuff, just as entertainment, and like no one was even bothered, like, and like flaming torches and stuff, just three goblins, and they started talking to them, and one of them like gendered the goblins, and I was like, you have no idea what gender that goblin is. Like, you haven't got a clue. You can't tell the gender of any of those goblins. Like, you don't even know if goblins have a concept of gender in the same way that you do. Like, because that's the other problem as like a trans and queer DM. DMing for a group of 4 cishet guys, like white cishet guys, is sometimes really hard work, because they just have like no offense, some of them in particular just have expectations and a way of seeing the world that just is devoid of all of the other, like the minorities and the broad tapestry.
Okay,
like,
so
they just see it through a cis-normative perspective.
is that from... I was going to ask, is that because sort of the media people have been exposed to, and sort of a lot of the, you know, like the Dragonlance and the old school like D&D adventures and the well-known characters kind of fit that mould a little bit?
I mean, I do think that that's part of it. I think representation matters, but I think representation is more important for, say, like a child me who hadn't really accepted themselves
Okay.
yet. Seeing that and seeing like, oh, that's what I could be. That's the most important part of representation. Normalising stuff is great, but normalising things is going to take a really broader change in society's view, because it's really everything. You like, from a very young age, like you're pushed towards the gender that is through our tradition aligned with your birth, your biological sex, or however you want to. Basically, we've created a system where whatever genitals you have means you should be interested in these things and wear these certain clothes, and none of us have questioned it. Well, a bunch of us have questioned it, but the majority have questioned it. Yeah, the majority of people have just not questioned it. They've just gone, yeah, I've got these genitals, so I should do that.
It does kind of feel like that idea is only just starting to slip into the mainstream. It's kind of been outside of mainstream media and things for a long time.
I'd say that kind of thing's almost intentional, though. Like, there's definitely been a push for queer folks to like not have any cultural impact. Like, yeah, I mean, plus you got to think, like, a whole generation. There was a lot of people lost in a generation with the AIDS epidemic. There's a lot less of the older generations of queers because of everything that happened there during the 80s. So, yeah, it's been tough. But things are getting better. The media's getting more diverse and inclusive. Places are getting more diverse and inclusive. You know, I see trans people in the small little area that I live in and stuff, which is nice.
They are around.
They exist.
They
yeah,
do
it's
exist.
not just me.
They do exist.
Yeah.
So the group, that's interesting when you're talking about the sort of the norms. So when you introduce like a kind of minor background NPC in a game, people get this kind of immediate mental image of what they would be like. You know, I sort of do the same thing. Sometimes I mention it, sometimes I don't. But like, you know, you're attacked by an archer, or you know, you knock the soldier's helmet off. Like, nobody knows what the soldier it looks like underneath. No one, there's kind of no distinction. But it's because in the games I've played, it's sort of it's more kind of whatever goes, kitchen sink fantasy within the sort of small group. And I was going to ask about how you do, like, have you ever done like sort of like gender politics within games where you've got different nations in the world, for example, and they have different opinions, or you know, different way that the genders present themselves? Is that sort of, or would that kind of concept be a little bit too? Do most people just want to play around in dungeons and kill orcs?
Yeah, really. I mean, I have stuff set up for political intrigue, but I think, like, generally with, like, because I just, like, I have a homebrew world that I've created that, like, I don't break down and recreate something with each campaign. I'll just move it around the world because of the way that I've got the world set up. to include loads of different socio-economic models and structures in society. So like there would be in their societies that have different concepts of gender, but it's not a thing that my players have kind of actively engaged in so far. So I haven't really run anything like that specifically, no. But it'd be interesting to do so, but sometimes things can kind of hit a bit too close to home.
Yeah.
Like you don't want to step in something that's like, you know, directly things that I've faced as a trans person.
Sure.
Like, yeah.
I suppose if somebody is on their own journey of discovery, you don't want to force them down any, or force them to confront something they're not.
No.
Whether confront's the right word, but or you know, to explore something they're not quite ready to explore just yet. But I don't know. I'm trying to guess through empathy. Really, it's it's not something that to sort of have much experience of.
Yeah, you got to kind of give with people who are exploring their gender. You just kind of got to give them the space.
Sure.
To figure it all out. Like the the next character that I made after Tia was a character called Izuri, and she was a tiefling sorcerer, divine soul sorcerer, and she was an attempt to bring the tropes of magical girls into D&D. So like,
do you want to just explain that? Just so I know what you mean. Magical girl tropes.
Okay, like magical girl and Mahou Shoujo anime is like card captors, Sailor Moon. It involves like usually a teenage kind of age girl coming into magical power with which to kind of save the world. There's often things like a cute mascot character. They'll have a transformation scene where they get into their like battle outfits, and there's like they usually have some kind of weapon. There's a load of different tropes that go along with it. I'm trying to think of any other. It's a very popular anime genre.
Sorry, I interrupted you then.
Like Magica Modica. If you've seen that, that's a great one to watch actually. Pueni Pueli Magica Modica. I think that's the right way to say it. But that's a trip. That's a roller coaster of an anime. It subverts the whole genre. But Izuri was like not the opposite of Tia, but she was a much more mature character rather than a childish part of me. It was me exploring concepts of being more mature, being more sensual, more like cuddly and touchy-feely, because there's like some... Me and another player kind of spoke about it like after the first session of just like, yeah, we kind of ship our characters together. Like so like and her character was a hexblade warlock. So when she got injured, Izuri would go up and give her like a little back rub to do cure wounds and stuff like that. Like really just sweet. They had like a really sweet little relationship. And she was just like me trying to pour like a more mature, I wouldn't say like maternal, but like still like a moral compass and a moral centre to the party, like a sweet and caring individual that's also able to be like seductive and sensual. So it was like, yeah, that was a whole trip. I have some really nice art of her that I commissioned. There's some nice art of Tia as well actually, but there's actually a joke about the reason why I have art for Tia is because I was having problems with posture while I was sleeping, so I bought a body pillow, you know, the weeb must have, and I was like, there's no way
they're very popular now. They're good for lumbar
popular.
support.
Yeah, I was like there's no way I'm going to get one of those creepy weeb
don't need one of
cases. No. So it just kind of became this joke of like I should get a Tia one so that I can love myself, like it'd be the ultimate loving yourself situation. And I did. I haven't got it printed, but I've got the artwork.
Nice.
I got some artwork done of my character for a body pillow, just as kind of a joke. But yeah.
I was going to ask another question then, but it just sort of totally fell out of my mind. Apologies. No, it's super interesting actually. So, I guess like, I suppose maybe, do you have any tips? So if sort of when it comes to somebody wanting to explore a character not necessarily different from themselves, but maybe how do I sort of put it? A character who is different from the way that you present yourself externally. What kind of tips are there for going about doing that?
I think one of the tips, especially, is probably the thing that I'd give anyone who's like, how do I get into like in-depth in-character roleplay? Because I do that. I get really into my character. I speak as my character. I act as my character. I'm very in character when I'm playing. The first thing to do is to give yourself enough room to like not think you're foolish, like to take yourself seriously when you're doing it. Like, don't feel foolish. Don't cringe at yourself. Like, just give yourself freedom to explore and act in the way you think you should. If you kind of, I think everybody and everyone, no matter what, like you actually did mention it earlier, like media has a major impact on how we portray genders and how we perceive genders and our own kind of understanding of expression. So like I say, I grew up watching anime and a lot of like girls anime. Sailor Moon was a big anime of mine, a favourite of mine. I've got a cute Usagi picture up there. So for me, I've always have wanted to be an anime girl. So a lot of things that make me feel kind of cutesy are things that can be found in anime, which sometimes can be problematic, but sorting the problematic things from the, fine to enjoy things is a process. So it's distilling down the things that you admire and like about people that you see within that gender and trying to portray that yourself. Because there is a common thing amongst trans people of you don't know if you're attracted to someone or if you want to be someone.
Okay.
So if you're trying to play someone of a different gender, think of someone that you find alluring or attractive and try and portray them in some way, in the way that you perceive them. So that could be one good way.
Super interesting. I imagine as well the group you're actually with would be really important then, particularly when it comes to, like you're saying about sort of embodying the character, speaking as the character, acting as they would, sort of getting into that headspace. I imagine if that's, well, I know that's a lot easier with a group of kind of people either know well, or people you trust, or people who you kind of vouch for. I imagine that would be difficult just joining a group of kind of randomers.
Yeah, and I think that's why previously I didn't explore it when I was younger in my teens, because I was playing at a table face to face with people. It was a lot harder to be taken seriously playing anything but like a joke character, or if I was playing a girl, a joke character, or just some generic fantasy thing.
I suppose, yeah, it's interesting, is it? I've seen people do that. I've seen people play like a character of the opposite gender, but they've done it as it's like a comedy role or a non-serious role, to actually play like I'm going to play a female character who is not necessarily it has to be a serious person, but this is a well-formed, this is a like complete and a badass kind of character.
Yeah, there is definitely a problem with that, and a problem that I probably myself fell into when I had internalized transphobia and misogyny and stuff.
Could you argue it's a start though? It's a start. It's a start down the path.
It's a something,
even if it's not the best start.
Yeah,
it's better than just everyone deciding to play Conan.
Yeah, no, fuck that. I wouldn't. I'd run away from that table. I'd be gone. I'd be out the door. I think I've been lucky with your group quite well. I think because we've got a predominantly women, or predominantly feminine people. Because I am a woman, but I'm also non-binary. But it's complicated. Yeah, I think we've been really chill. I think it's been really good in that sense. Because there's definitely a major worry for like, well, any queer people, not just trans people, coming to a table and just like worrying if the stereotypical like awful 4chan loving asshole is sat at the table, you know.
The horror stories we've all heard about, the worst kind of players.
And that's why there's like, you often get posts of, in like the more general D&D groups of like, are there any LGBT friendly games going, and then you see people in the comments going, why would you specifically ask that? If I was asking for a straight only group, everyone would be complaining. It's like, I guess you just don't get
Just don't get that, yeah.
Or you're exactly the reason why.
I want to be in a game that you're not in.
Yeah.
Go and have your own game over there. We'll have our game over here, and never the twain shall meet.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, like, it was pretty good I got a lot of good online games and stuff going during the lockdown. With quite nice groups and not exactly fully straight people, I guess.
So, we've talked quite a lot. It's been amazing speaking to you. We are sort of hitting the sort of arbitrarily designed time limit. So I guess I was going to ask something else then, but my mind today, I've been gardening all day. I've been outdoors. I'm exhausted.
Oh, you got burnt, but you get like brain bubbling because of the sun. I was on a training course, so
one of those.
Yeah, also in a very hot room.
So if someone out there is going to join a new D&D game, or they're going to do a new short game, and somebody decides, today I'm going to play a character of a different gender, or I'm going to explore a different, not necessarily the binary genders, but other types of sort of gender identity as well. Is it okay for anyone just to have a go at that? Is that something the community should encourage? Because I think so.
Absolutely, because I think at the end of the day, no matter what happens, if a cis person explores gender, or whether or not they think that they might possibly be trans, if at the end of it they realise that they're cis, all we've got is a cis person that's got a deeper understanding of gender and might be a little bit more understanding and empathetic of people who fall outside of the binary or don't align with the assigned gender they had at birth, or either one is,
That is an absolutely lovely note to end it on. That's a really nice thought, I think. So, Hannah, thank you very, very, very much indeed for talking to me.
You're totally welcome. Thank you for having me.
And I'll catch you soon. Bye, everyone. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the buttons. No, you don't have to like or subscribe. Just if you think there's somebody who might find this chat useful, ping it across. And bye from me. See you all later.